Hi, and welcome to the ServiceNow Community's Ask the Expert series. Today we've got Corbett Brasington, a ServiceNow developer, and he'll be discussing simplified and optimized PMO demand resource management on Istanbul.
Hello, everyone. I'm Corbett Brasington. I'm your host, and I'll be talking about simplified and optimized PMO demand and resource management. A little background on me. I am a PMP professional. I've been managing projects for the past 6 years. 3 of those years was me as a PMO owner. I'm also a certified Scrum Master, so I love agile work, agile project development. I am a certified ServiceNow admin. I'm also a certified ServiceNow implementation specialist, and I've been working as a technical consultant in the PPM, PPS space for the past 2.5 years, using that expertise. So here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to go over the selection process and best practices for demand and resource management. We're going to talk about a PMO model. We're going to talk about the ServiceNow tools and techniques that can help you facilitate that. And I'm also going to be here to answer question and answers that will be on the ServiceNow community page. The target audience for this are both non-technical and technical people. So it doesn't matter if you're an admin that's administering a PPS implementation or if you are a PMO professional. This is aimed for both of you. So you'll get something out of this. The main thing is that you're just working in the PPS space. A few housekeeping items before we dive in. This video is actually a recording, but I am here live. And the reason why we are doing that is so that I can answer your questions immediately on the community page when you ask them. And that's really where we want your questions captured. And that's so that others can benefit for the future. If there's questions that need to be asked in the future as well, those can be answered as well. So I will ask that everyone, if you have a question, please post it on the community page and I will answer it there. So let's get right into it. Simplified and optimized PMO demand and resource management. So the first question that we really have to ask is, how do we pick the right projects? And how does ServiceNow help me do that? Really, why do I care? All selection can be boiled down to 2 questions. The first question is a which question. Which projects should we do? Which demands should we convert into projects? And that has to do with strategic alignment and your tactical importance. So strategic alignment is the vision of who we want to become is X, Y, Z. These projects are closely aligned to those objectives that would have a strong strategic alignment. Tactical examples would be, hey, if we lose this account, we're going out of business. So it's really important that we do this project. Another way of looking at it, you could ask yourself the question of, should we do these projects? The second component is really a when question. So after you've asked, should we do this, you need to ask, can we, which we call when. And we also call it, how can we? Because it is typically constrained by budget and staffing. And those are the constraints of when you can do something. But you also want to ask yourself, how can we? A good reason for this is if you get a huge opportunity, a huge account, and it doubles your annual revenue, well, you're obviously not going to not staff that project, right? You're going to hire more people. So that's an example of, hey, we should do this one because it's incredibly important to us tactically. We don't have the staffing needs right now, so we need to be able to staff it. And what does that mean? What does that look like? It's important to have a tool that can do that, and ServiceNow can do that for you. So for those watching, I do want to pause for a moment and just reflect on what has your experience been so far, especially if you are a PM or a PMO professional. For a lot of PMOs and a lot of project managers, the process is typically a tribal process. And what I mean by that is you sit around a room or you sit around the campfire and you talk about the projects that you want to get approval on. And you vote, and essentially it's a gut check battle. My gut says we should do this, or your gut says we should do this. And you end up playing something called rock, paper, scissors, rank. I outrank you, I win. And that's not very gratifying if you're a PM. And it's not necessarily that that's the wrong way. But for a lot of immature PMOs and organizations, that's what happens. And if we can, we want to provide a level of objectivity to help you make better decisions. After that point, after that question of the tribal process, if you're not using a tool like ServiceNow, the other question that you need to answer is for the budgeting and then the staffing. The budgeting can be a little easier, but the staffing can be really tricky because if you're trying to do everything manually or on paper or through email, you have to look at when people are available, what other projects could be conflicting with resources that I want to consume, and it can be really stressful. And because of that, what ends up happening is the PM or the portfolio owner typically says, you know what, we're going to start it on this date, and we're just going to figure it out. And if you're chuckling right now, you know that that's because that happens. And that's not necessarily wrong, but there is a better way to do it. And the first experience typically is like this. It can feel like wading through mud, and it's not a very enjoyable experience. So the goal is to use technology in the ServiceNow platform to make it feel a lot more like this. A little girl ice skating effortlessly. That's what we want it to feel like. So Jim Rohn's got a great quote that I want to take time to talk about for a second, because a lot of people tell me, either from past implementations, about how challenging and difficult it can be to do the decision part, especially on the resourcing and the budgeting side. And I always like to challenge that mindset and with this quote, and that is, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. Don't wish for less problems, wish for more skills. Don't wish for less challenge, wish for more wisdom. And that's a quote from Jim Rohn. And I love that quote. And really the wisdom component, in my opinion, comes in that the difference between the muddy experience and the ice skating experience, where it's effortless, is really technology. There's a leverage to help you make those decisions, especially one that can be customized in a way for your business or your needs. So this is the PMO maturity model that I mentioned, and I want to stop and talk about this for a second, because if you're a PMO manager or you're a PM, you will be able to identify where you are on this chart. But the other reason I want to talk about it is because ServiceNow as a tool can facilitate every item on here and can help you grow from a level 1 to a level 2, many of which just from out-of-box functions. So the first one that I want to talk about is when you are a level 1, or I sometimes call it a level 0. And what this means is you have a couple key accounts, a couple key projects that are so important to your business that your PMO or your business actually creates processes around those clients. Not to say that that's wrong, just to say that that doesn't necessarily position you for growth in the future. That's level 1. Another could be no formal project management tools. So if you're doing project management work and budgeting and resourcing in Excel, you're in this category. The other is budgets. I've worked with a lot of customers who say, Corbett, I don't want to use ServiceNow for budgeting. I'll use something else. That's fine. I've also worked with customers who say, hey, we don't do budgets on our projects. If that's you, that's fine, but you're level 1. Level 2, you are ranking your projects and you do have processes that are standardized. So this is good. The tool can facilitate both of these very easily. Another is in terms of capturing, did this project actually create a return on investment? Did it actually create benefit? Are we able to measure that benefit, and can I report on it? It's a more advanced concept, but the system can do that with some customization and configuration. And then obviously when you get to level 5, part of that is change management. So I'm not talking about all of these because you can easily pause the video and you can look at these. This is the Gartner maturity model. You can search for it on the internet. He's got a great book written if you're in a PMO and you're looking for something for personal growth. But again, this is called the Gartner maturity model. Most customers who are implementing BPM, which is now called Service Strategy Suite, I believe, in Istanbul, which is what I'm going to show you, are at level 1 or level 0. But most of them really are at level 1 towards the left side. So let's talk about the decision process, and then let's talk about the tool. So the first thing is the decision process of the which and the when needs to be separated. And the reason for this is because the which decision, it's an abstraction. It's not can we, it's should we. And you don't want to limit your organization at this point. Right? If the will is strong enough, the way will reveal itself. So don't limit your organization at this point. It also keeps things a lot simpler. You will have another decision point where you look at the can we or how can we. So you will talk about that, but you don't want to limit the projects that you could do, especially ones that are really aligned with your corporate vision and your corporate goals with the can we at this point. So ServiceNow tools to help you do this. There are two. The first one is the assessment tool. It is free to ESS stakeholders. I've heard many times people say, but it's not, and that's wrong. And I'm going to show you why. Now, I should have a legal disclaimer here to say, I am not a ServiceNow sales rep. You need to consult with your ServiceNow sales rep to verify anything that I say. But with that being said, let's talk about why it's free, and let's talk about the barriers to use. For those of you not familiar, assessment is a survey engine ServiceNow has out of box. The ServiceNow engine is free, and it allows you to ask any question that you want, get any data that you want from stakeholders, and then that data gets computed into normalized values that you can use to rank your projects. That's what it does. So the first barrier is people think that there's a cost. There is no cost, and here's why. The survey engine is free to ESS stakeholders. The other thing, though, that someone needs in order to take an assessment is they need access to the demand record. And this is really where people think, oh, I need to have a license for this. If you want to look at the record natively in the platform, yes, you would need a license to do that. But your ESS users aren't in the platform. They're going to need an email saying, hey, you have an assessment that you need to take. And in that email, you can simply attach an export of the demand record as a PDF to them, and they're going to have all the information that they need. And I'm going to show you that. The other barrier to entry of using the out-of-box ServiceNow assessment tool is people think it's too cumbersome. And meaning that you're asking too many questions, and maybe you're not asking the right questions. Now, ServiceNow is great. However, the tools or the questions that are asked out of box for assessment really are for a more mature PMO. So a level 1 or a level 2 PMO would look at the questions that come out of box. I'm not going to show you those and say, man, this is too much. I don't want to do this. This would take too much time. So I've simplified them, and I'm going to show you a really good starting point for you to use. This should also remove this objection. And then there's also tribal ranking. But let's go ahead and talk about assessment. So let's do a quick demo. And I'm going to show you what I was talking about. So I'm in my instance. I'm an admin. Now I'm going to be impersonating users, a couple things, a couple tools. So we're going to get into some technical components here that I use. I do have a post that I have posted that is an update set with all PPS users with roles. It's currently updated for Helsinki. So that you can put it into your environment. The links are here. There's also an Excel document that says what the roles are and what they contain. And then there's one with the actual user records that you can put in your environment. There's also a script to tear down if you want to remove it. But it's super helpful because it will allow you to just say, hey, demand manager. And you'll see demand manager testing, demand user. So it's something that's on the community page. You're more than welcome to use it. If you're an admin or a dev, it will make development more rapid for you and a lot cleaner. So I encourage you to do that. So let's go ahead and just want to show everyone. This is more for the technical people. A user account I've created that does not have any roles. So I've created a user called ESS. There are no roles here. Just to validate, there are no roles. Okay. I'm going to create a new demand. We're going to call this demand dog. Not that kind of dog, this kind of dog. There we go. I'm not going to enter anything else at this time.
Hey,
In
can I
order
get
for
you to zoom in on your screen so that when people are viewing this more on a smaller scale, they can be able to see it? Thanks.
absolutely. Let's see how we do that. Zoom in. Is this any better? It might be a little too much.
If it works, then yeah, that's better.
Okay. All right. So I've just created a new demand record. It's called dog. In order for someone to receive an assessment, they need to be a stakeholder. Stakeholder is a separate type of user record. So I'm going to create a new stakeholder register record for an ESS user. Now, I happen to have it just in here. I'm going to attach it to a portfolio that I've already created, just called demo. Now they need to be an assessment recipient in order to get one. Approver means they can approve demands. Influence, we're going to say hi. Functions, just a text field to say what's the stakeholder's function. All right, so let's go ahead and generate an assessment record so that you can see what I'm talking about. So in order for assessments to be sent, they will be automatically sent out of box once a demand is put into a state of screen. You'll notice the hover says initiate assessments. So let's go in as our ESS user. Again, someone who has no roles whatsoever. You'll notice it says my assessments and surveys. Now I currently have four. I have 4 assessments and surveys in here. Now, one thing to note is the assessments out of box, they don't give you very much information from the demand record. All they say is it's a demand assigned to you and it's ready to take. When you actually go into it, the only component that's actually linked to the demand record is the short description. So this is, again, another reason why you want to attach a PDF of the demand. Let me show you what that looks like. So I have another browser window open here. Let's make sure everybody can see that. Let's just go into, I'm going to go into another demand that I have. And when a document is exported, your admins should know how to do this. This is what it looks like. It has every component on the demand record. Granted, a lot of mine are blank. But it also has the information in the related list, stakeholders. There's other ones I have that are blank. And anything that you want to show up in this one-page report from the related list, the default related list fields need to be there in order for this to show up. But what this means is your ESS stakeholders, so let's say you have a stakeholder not in ServiceNow, they can get an email notification that says, please go here to take this assessment. You have a new demand that requires assessment. That email will have this PDF as an attachment on it. And then they can go into the system following a link from their email and they can take the assessment. There's no license impact from that at all. So the second part, though, is that we talked about is you want to make sure that your questions are simple and that they actually add value. The ones that I recommend level 1 or level 2 PMOs to use are just 2 questions. And the question is, and you'll notice it says Corbett Tactical. You're not going to name it that. But how important is this tactically? And then strategically, how important is this? And that's it. And here's the reason why. You're probably not going to know the return on investment. You're just guessing. You may or may not know the risk, or you may not care at this point. There's a lot of stuff that you just don't know at this point, but you still want to decide, hey, which demands should we consider? And that's why this is a really good place to start. I will show you how to configure these. I also recommend using the Fibonacci sequence. And the reason I recommend using this is because humans are really bad at making estimates. Really bad. Estimates are almost always wrong. And Fibonacci, which is taken from Scrum and Agile development, is relative estimating. It's a lot easier to know that a 3 is not a 5 than it would be to know that a 3 is not a 4. So it's a lot easier for humans to say, well, it's a 5 or a 3. It's a lot easier on your users, and it makes the process a lot simpler. So I'm going to go ahead and for this one, I'm going to say tactically, this one is, man, if we don't do this project, like we're going to go out of business. And then strategically, it's also important. And then I'm going to go ahead and submit this. If I'm an ESS user, that's it. Now you're done. So what happens to this information, and where do we use this information? Well, The way that you're going to use this is in the demand workbench is the primary place that you're going to use this. I'm going to pull up my PowerPoint here again. And here's why. What I'm about to show you is the demand workbench, and I have it configured to represent a baseball diagram. And the reason for that is it's a lot easier to conceptualize. The demand workbench can be configured by your admins. Go to the demand workbench, and here's what it looks like. Now I have altered this from what it is out of box so that strategic rating is here and tactical rating is here. You'll notice that all the demo data that loads with an environment is down here, and that's because I changed the access, or the accesses, not the access. So top right is, hey, this is very aligned with strategic goals, and it's also tactically important, optimal, right? So it looks like a baseball diagram. So if we overlay this just to give people a better idea of this, looks like this. And the goal is you want to be in the outfield, right? Be in the outfield, or if you can, hit a home run. That's the goal. And so the axes that I've set up is optimal, consider, and then nope, because I'm gonna keep it simple, stupid kind of guy. But this is where the data will actually get processed. Now there are background scripts that your admins need to know in terms of processing the data, and I'm gonna show you what those are so that your admins know what they are. But having this allows you to make objective decisions before you go into the tribal ranking. So let me show you, let me just pause and show what the scripts are. Now I'm going to be using the developer search. The developer search is not something that's native to the ServiceNow platform, but it is something that is on the ServiceNow SharePoint or the share site. There will be a link in the community blog to this. And I'd already happen to know that one of the fields that needs to be evaluated is called score risk. So it's nice. This will search business rule, script includes everything. And these are the scripts that actually populate the data. I'm not going to go into them. I just want you to know that's what they are. So let me go back into my actual demand record. Let me go into the actual demands. So I have finished this. Now you'll notice this one has been moved to a state of qualified. Your assessment matrix or the assessment metrics can be configured to automatically approve or deny demands based on your specifications. So again, it's just a layer of making the decision process a lot easier for you. This is the assessment data that's out of box. I'm leaving it so that you can see what it is, but lots of times you're not going to know what this is at this point. There is this additional assessment data that is used. I do have some recommended fields that we're going to talk about. These are out-of-box fields that just come out of box and that assessment will automatically capture. Let me just show what the actual assessment results do. So you notice that I picked numbers. There's one for strategic and there's one for tactical. This happened to be, this is just for me, right? 50-50 weight. These are the ratings that it was given, right? It converted my number into a different number, and then it gives a normalized value. Your admins can configure this to do whatever you want it to do in terms of math. It's the main thing I want to point out. So let me show you what this looks like on a list view, because it'll really pull all of this together to do this. So if you're doing a tribal ranking process, so let me maximize this screen here a little bit, and I am going to zoom out just a little bit. I have a field on here called tribal rank. So the reason why I have this on here is if you're doing your assessment on your demands and you have scripts that pull the data in and your admins are configuring those, it will normalize and average all of those values. So when you're having a tribal meeting, which you should still have, you can come in here and you can say, hey, the assessment normalized score, which is this is average of these two, is this. And it makes the decision process a lot easier. but you still have the ability to do tribal ranking. And most people want to be able to do that in ServiceNow. They want to have tribal ranking. So some nice configurations that you can do to have this is, number one, add the field. The other is there's some code that I will show you that allows you to do the following. So I'm going to say that this demand for Penguin, I'm going to re-rank this to be 1. And let's go ahead and sort by rank. Now you'll notice that my page refreshed, and that's because I have a client script in here that will reload the window. And I'll show you what that is. So admins, you can use that. It's really simple. It's on cell edit, on tribal rank, and here's the code. It's literally just window, set timer, reload. There's also a background script in here that actually will re-rank everything, and I'll show you that as well. Again, if you want the code, you can either just you can pause it, or you can ask me on the community page. It's an on-after business rule that runs to re-rank your demands. It runs on update, and the code is the following. It's pretty simple. All it does is once you update something, it groups them by when they're updated, and then it re-ranks all your records, and it will do it by portfolio. So let me show where this pulls it all together. And the place where this gets really pulled all together is in the workbench. So these are out-of-box fields that I'm going to remove. Let's add tribal rank. So again, the think baseball diagram, you want to be in the outfield or hit a home run, which is like way over here. You can edit things from this view. You can sort and you can filter. So the demand workbench is really nice because if I wanted to say, hey, only show me qualified demands, you still have the ability to do that. And then everything up top will refresh and reload to say show qualified demands. It also happens with oh, I'm sorry, let's not use stage. Stage is a horrible thing to search for. This is not going to work. Let's say you want to see demands that are in this portfolio, right? It's only 2 of them, right? You'll notice this updates. Don't ever use stage. It's a decoration field. You're not going to get any data. But it allows you just to sort, and then the part up top actually, it updates for you. So it's really nice. And this is really what you want to use. And this is really what pulls it all together for you when you're having your tribal ranking meetings. You can have this on a PowerPoint screen. You have a visual indicator of size. That's how large it is. And you can, that's just an estimate from t-shirt size that's on the demand record. And then you can look at them individually. You can pull up the demands, you can pull up the demand record, things like that. You can view the demand, create a project if you want to, but I don't recommend doing that from this stage. And then re-rank. And that really makes the selection process for answering which demands should we do a lot cleaner. The other thing that it does is because you're doing assessments, you have a record of who said what when you decide what projects to do. I've used this with other customers in the past. It's been very successful. It's very simple. It's really easy for people to grasp. And the other thing is it doesn't take a lot of time. The assessments are literally just 2 questions if that's how you want to configure it, which I recommend. It's really simple, and that's what you want. So the next component of this, right? So we've talked about the which. The next component that we're going to talk about is the when. So before a qualified demand can be approved, a when analysis must be performed. Now I'm using the word must because that's best practice, but the system will allow you to just approve a demand. And really, you're talking about the can we or how can we. So this is a demand record, right? So going from a qualified state to an approved state, that's what I'm talking about. You want to have a when analysis performed. So here's the use case. And this is what I have a lot of customers asking for. Most of them are portfolio owners. They say, Corbett, given a set of qualified demands, I need to know the optimal mix of projects to approve their timelines to start, given my portfolio or program's budget and staffing limitations. How do I do that? And that's what we're going to talk about in the next webinar. So the next webinar, we will talk about that. We'll also talk about how to do the when analysis, the what ifing at the project level, but we'll also talk about how to do it as well at the program or portfolio level. By the way, that component is not native to ServiceNow. It is a rather large customization, but that is something that we will showcase. So at this point, hopefully, just to recap, you now understand how you can configure the system and use the ServiceNow tool to help you make better decisions using the assessments, also using tribal ranking. And hopefully you've got some tips from what I've shown you that will help you add value. So again, my name is Corbett Brazington. This is a ServiceNow PPM Expert Series webinar, and I hope you have a great day.